Picture this. You're walking down the red carpet, cameras flashing from every direction, millions of people watching your every move on live television. One wrong step, one slip of your heel, and the moment becomes an international headline for all the wrong reasons. This nightmare scenario is exactly what every royal family member faces at every public appearance. But what if there was a simple, brilliant solution hiding in plain sight? In a world of high fashion and royal protocol, where every detail matters and perfection is not just expected but demanded, Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, discovered something that would change everything. It wasn't a designer's secret or an expensive royal privilege. It was something so ordinary, so accessible, that millions of women around the world already had it sitting in their dresser drawers. This is the true story of how a future queen's practical problem-solving mind turned a common wardrobe staple into the most talked-about fashion hack of the decade. A story that proves sometimes the most revolutionary ideas come from the most unexpected places, and that real wisdom often lies in simplicity rather than complexity. What started as a personal solution to an embarrassing problem would soon become a global phenomenon, inspiring countless women and even changing how the fashion industry thinks about practical elegance. This is not just about tights or high heels. This is about innovation, resourcefulness, and how one woman's clever thinking sparked a movement that continues to influence fashion choices worldwide. The story you're about to read reveals the fascinating journey of discovery, the moments of doubt and triumph, and the unexpected consequences of what seemed like such a simple idea. From the pressure-filled world of royal appearances to the everyday struggles of working women everywhere, this hack became a bridge between two very different worlds. Get ready to discover how Catherine's genius solution not only saved her from countless potential disasters, but also empowered millions of women to walk with confidence, knowing they had learned something invaluable from royalty itself. The autumn morning of 2011 dawned crisp and clear over London, but inside the walls of Clarence House, Catherine Middleton was facing a crisis that would have seemed trivial to most people, but felt monumental to someone whose every public appearance was scrutinized by millions. She stood in front of her full-length mirror, wearing an elegant navy blue dress and her favorite pair of nude heels, preparing for what would be her third major royal engagement since marrying Prince William just months earlier. The problem was simple yet maddening. Every time she took more than a few steps, her feet would slide forward in her shoes, causing her heels to slip slightly out of place. It wasn't enough to cause a dramatic fall, but it was enough to make walking feel uncertain and uncomfortable. For someone who would spend the next several hours walking, standing, and greeting hundreds of people while cameras captured every moment, this was more than just an inconvenience. It was a potential disaster waiting to happen. Catherine had always been particular about her footwear choices, understanding that comfort and style needed to work together, especially in her new role as a member of the royal family. She had invested in high-quality shoes from reputable designers, shoes that fit well and looked appropriate for every occasion. Yet here she was, facing the same problem that plagued women everywhere who wore high heels regularly. The gap between what looked good and what felt secure seemed impossible to bridge. Her stylist and dresser, who had years of experience working with high-profile clients, had tried several traditional solutions. They had experimented with different sizes, thinking perhaps the shoes were simply too large. They had tried various types of insoles and heel grips, products specifically designed to address this exact issue. Some helped marginally, but none provided the security and confidence that Catherine needed for extended public appearances. The pressure was mounting because this particular engagement was especially important. She was scheduled to visit a children's charity in East London, an event that would require her to interact closely with young children, crouch down to their level, walk across various surfaces including outdoor pathways and indoor play areas, and maintain perfect composure throughout. The thought of having to constantly worry about her footing while trying to focus on the children and the important work of the charity was becoming increasingly stressful. As Catherine stood there that morning, examining her reflection and testing how the shoes felt as she moved around her dressing room, she began to think about the problem from a completely different angle. She remembered how certain fabrics could create friction against smooth surfaces, how the right material could provide the hold that was missing between her foot and the shoe. Looking at her clothing options for the day, Catherine's eyes fell on a pair of sheer tights that she had planned to wear anyway as part of her outfit. The tights were high quality, with a subtle texture that she had never really paid attention to before. As she held them up to the light, examining the material more closely, she began to formulate an idea that would soon change everything. The concept was elegantly simple, yet no one in her circle of advisors, stylists, or fashion consultants had ever suggested it. Instead of relying on products that sat between her foot and the shoe, what if she used the tights themselves to create the friction and grip she needed? The material of the tights, when layered correctly, might provide just enough texture and hold to keep her feet secure in even the most challenging shoes. Catherine decided to test her theory immediately. She put on the tights as usual, but then she tried something different. Instead of simply wearing them normally under her shoes, she experimented with how the material interacted with her feet and the shoe interior. She discovered that when she positioned the tights in a specific way, creating slight bunching or layering in strategic areas, the fabric provided exactly the kind of grip she had been searching for. The first few test steps around her dressing room were revelatory. Her feet felt completely secure in the shoes, with no sliding or slipping. The tights created a perfect barrier between her skin and the smooth interior of the shoes, while the texture of the fabric provided just enough friction to keep everything in place. Even more importantly, the solution felt comfortable and natural, not like she was wearing some kind of awkward insert or modification. Catherine spent the next 20 minutes walking around her room, testing the solution in various scenarios. She tried walking quickly, stopping suddenly, stepping up and down from different heights, and even attempting some of the movements she knew she would need to make while interacting with children. In every case, the makeshift solution held perfectly, giving her the confidence and security she had been hoping to find. What made this discovery even more exciting was its simplicity and accessibility. Unlike expensive shoe modifications or specialized product that needed to be ordered and fitted, this solution used something she already owned and would be wearing anyway. It required no additional purchases, no special appointments with cobblers or shoe specialists, and no bulky additions to her shoes that might be visible or uncomfortable throughout a long day. As Catherine prepared to leave for her engagement that morning, she felt a sense of satisfaction and relief that went beyond just solving a footwear problem. She had approached a challenge with creativity and practical thinking, finding an innovative solution that was both effective and elegant. Little did she know that this simple idea would soon become one of the most talked about fashion secrets in the world. The success of that day's engagement was obvious to everyone who observed it. Catherine moved with confidence and grace, never once appearing uncertain about her footing or uncomfortable in her shoes. She was able to focus completely on the children and the charity's mission, giving her full attention to the important conversations and interactions that made the visit meaningful. By the end of that first successful test, Catherine knew she had discovered something valuable. But she had no idea that her practical solution would soon capture the imagination of women around the world, becoming a symbol of accessible innovation and smart fashion thinking that transcended royal circles and social boundaries. Word of Catherine's innovative solution began spreading through the tight-knit community of royal staff and fashion professionals with the kind of quiet excitement that accompanies a truly useful discovery. It started with her personal dresser, who had witnessed firsthand the transformation in Catherine's confidence and comfort during public appearances. After years of struggling to find effective solutions for clients who face similar challenges, seeing such a simple yet effective approach was nothing short of revolutionary. The dresser, bound by strict confidentiality agreements, but unable to contain her professional enthusiasm, began carefully sharing the technique with other trusted members of the royal household staff. The information traveled through a network of ladies-in-waiting, personal assistants, and senior dressers who worked with various members of the royal family. Each person who learned about the method was sworn to discretion, but they were also encouraged to test and refine the technique for their own clients. Within weeks, other female members of the royal family began experimenting with Catherine's approach. The Countess of Wessex was among the first to try the method, facing similar challenges during her own busy schedule of public engagements. Sophie had always been known for a practical approach to royal duties, and she immediately recognized the value of Catherine's innovation. Her own experience confirmed what Catherine had discovered. The technique worked remarkably well across different shoe styles and foot shapes. The method's effectiveness became even more apparent during the busy autumn season of 2011, when the royal calendar was packed with formal events, charity galas, and international visits. These occasions demanded long hours in formal footwear, often involving extensive walking and standing on various surfaces. Traditional solutions like heel grips and insoles had always been hit or miss, sometimes working well for certain shoes, but failing completely with others. Princess, and known for her no-nonsense attitude and decades of experience with royal engagements, was initially skeptical when she heard about Catherine's method. She had tried virtually every product and technique available over her many years of public service, and she doubted that something so simple could be more effective than purpose-made solutions. However, after testing the approach during a particularly demanding day of farm visits and outdoor ceremonies, even she became a convert. The beauty of Catherine's discovery lay not just in its effectiveness, but in its adaptability. Different members of the royal family found ways to modify and personalize the technique to suit their individual needs and preferences. Some discovered that certain types of tights worked better than others, while some found that the method could be enhanced by combining it with minimal use of traditional products like heel grips. Sarah, Duchess of York, learned about the technique through her connections with the royal household and immediately saw its potential value for the countless charity events and speaking engagements that filled her calendar. Despite no longer being a working royal, Sarah still faced many of the same challenges when it came to formal footwear and public appearances. She found that Catherine's method gave her newfound confidence during long events, allowing her to focus on her charitable work rather than worrying about her comfort and stability. The technique also proved valuable for the younger generation of royals who were beginning to take on more public duties. Lady Louise Windsor, though still young, had already begun attending certain formal events with her parents. Her mother, the Countess of Wessex, taught her Catherine's method as part of learning proper formal dress protocols, ensuring that comfort and confidence would be built into her approach to royal duties from the very beginning. What made the method particularly appealing to the royal household was its invisibility. Unlike other solutions that might be detectable to photographers or observers, Catherine's approach was completely hidden and left no trace of modification to the shoes themselves. This was crucial for royal appearances, where every detail of clothing and accessories would be photographed and analyzed by fashion experts and the general public. The palace staff who worked in wardrobe and protocol departments began incorporating knowledge of the technique into their standard procedures. New staff members were quietly trained in the method, and it became part of the unofficial but essential knowledge that helped ensure successful royal appearances. Senior dressers began keeping detailed notes about which types of tights worked best with different shoe styles and for different types of events. International visits presented particular challenges, as they often involved extensive travel, multiple outfit changes, and unfamiliar venues with varying floor surfaces. Catherine's method proved especially valuable during these high-stakes engagements, with a combination of jet lag, unfamiliar environments, and packed schedules made comfort and confidence even more crucial. During a particularly memorable state visit to Canada in 2011, Catherine's technique was put to the ultimate test. The tour included outdoor ceremonies on grass and uneven surfaces, indoor receptions with polished marble floors, walkabouts through crowded public spaces, and formal dinners requiring hours in elegant heels. Traditional footwear solutions might have worked well for one or two of these scenarios, but would likely have failed under the varied demands of the full itinerary. The Canadian tour became a showcase not just for Catherine's growing confidence in her royal role, but for the practical benefits of her innovative approach to formal footwear. Fashion commentators noted her apparent comfort and grace throughout the demanding schedule, though they had no idea about the simple secret that was making such poise possible. Back in London, word of the technique's success continued to spread through professional networks that extended beyond the royal household. High-end personal stylists who worked with celebrities and business leaders began hearing whispers about a new approach to heel security that was achieving remarkable results. Fashion industry insiders started quietly investigating what might be behind the increased confidence they were observing in certain high-profile clients. The discretion surrounding Catherine's discovery created an air of mystery that only added to its appeal. Those who knew about the method felt they were part of an exclusive group with access to valuable insider knowledge. This sense of special access motivated people to test and refine the technique, leading to a growing body of practical knowledge about how to implement it most effectively. Professional cobblers and shoe repair specialists in London began noticing a decrease in requests for heel modifications and comfort adjustments from certain clientele. While they didn't understand the reason behind this trend, they observed that some of their most demanding customers seemed to have found solutions to problems that had previously required expensive and time-consuming modifications to their footwear. As 2011 drew to a close, Catherine's simple innovation had quietly revolutionized the approach to formal footwear within royal circles and beyond. The technique had proven itself across dozens of high-profile events and demanding occasions, building a reputation for reliability that traditional products had never achieved. Most importantly, it had given the people who used it a sense of confidence and security that transformed their entire experience of formal occasions and public appearances. The transformation from closely guarded royal secret to global phenomenon began with a single observant fashion photographer during a spring charity event in 2012. Marcus Chun, a seasoned professional who had spent years documenting royal fashion, noticed something different about Catherine's walk and posture that he couldn't quite identify. Her confidence in high heels seemed to have evolved beyond what he had observed during her early months as a royal, and her movement appeared more natural and relaxed than ever before. Marcus began studying his photographs more carefully, comparing recent images with those from Catherine's first year of royal duties. While he couldn't pinpoint exactly what had changed, he was certain that something fundamental had shifted in how she approached formal footwear. His curiosity led him to start conversations with other fashion photographers and royal watchers, trying to understand whether they had noticed similar changes. The breakthrough came when Marcus struck up a conversation with Emma Richardson, a freelance fashion writer who specialized in royal style analysis. Emma had been following Catherine's fashion evolution closely and had noticed the same increased confidence that Marcus had observed. More importantly, Emma had connections within the fashion industry that gave her access to information that photographers typically couldn't obtain. Through a series of careful conversations with stylists, fashion assistants, and industry insiders, Emma began piecing together clues about Catherine's approach to footwear. The story that emerged was fragmented and incomplete, but it suggested that Catherine had developed some kind of innovative technique for achieving greater comfort and security in high heels. Emma's investigation took several months as she worked to verify information and build a complete picture of what had become known in certain circles as Catherine's method. The challenge was that most of the people who knew about the technique were bound by professional confidentiality agreements or personal loyalty to the royal family. Getting anyone to speak on the record about specific details seemed nearly impossible. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Maria Santos, a former assistant to a high-end London stylist, had left her fashion career to pursue teaching and felt comfortable sharing what she had learned about innovative approaches to common fashion problems. Maria had witnessed the technique being used during her time in the industry and had even experimented with it herself. In conversations with Emma, Maria explained the basic principles behind Catherine's approach without revealing specific details about royal clients or confidential information. She described how certain materials could be used creatively to solve long-standing problems with formal footwear, and she confirmed that the technique was remarkably effective for people who spent long hours in high heels. Emma's article, published in a mid-level fashion magazine in late 2012, was carefully written to avoid any direct claims about royal family members while still conveying the essential information about the innovative technique. The article focused on the general principles behind using hosiery creatively to improve heel security, presenting it as an emerging trend among fashion-conscious women rather than attributing it to any specific individual. The response to Emma's article was immediate and enthusiastic. Readers began experimenting with the technique and sharing their results on social media platforms and fashion forums. Women who had struggled with heel security for years discovered that this simple approach solved problems that expensive products had never addressed effectively. Fashion bloggers picked up on the trend and began writing their own articles about creative uses for tights and hosiery. YouTube tutorials started appearing, with fashion enthusiasts demonstrating various ways to implement the technique. The method began evolving and expanding as more people tried it and developed their own modifications and improvements. Within 6 months, the technique had gained enough recognition to attract attention from major fashion publications. Vogue, Elle, and Harper's Bazaar all published articles about innovative approaches to heel comfort, with Catherine's original method serving as the foundation for broader discussions about creative problem-solving in fashion. The timing of the public discovery coincided perfectly with growing interest in practical fashion solutions and DIY approaches to style challenges. Women were becoming increasingly interested in techniques that could improve their comfort and confidence without requiring expensive purchases or professional services. Catherine's method represented exactly the kind of accessible innovation that resonated with contemporary fashion sensibilities. Social media accelerated the spread of information about the technique far beyond traditional fashion media channels. Instagram accounts dedicated to fashion tips and tricks began featuring posts about the method, often accompanied by before and after photos showing the difference in heel security. Pinterest boards devoted to fashion hacks included detailed instructions and variations on the basic technique. The democratizing effect of social media meant that women from all backgrounds and economic circumstances could access information about the method and adapt it to their own needs. Unlike expensive fashion solutions that were only available to wealthy consumers, Catherine's approach required nothing more than standard hosiery that most women already owned. Professional podiatrists and foot health specialists began taking notice of the technique as more of their patients mentioned trying it. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a London-based podiatrist who specialized in problems related to formal footwear, was initially skeptical but became intrigued when several patients reported significant improvements in comfort and stability. Dr. Walsh conducted informal studies of the technique and found that it did indeed provide measurable improvements in heel security for most people who tried it. Her analysis confirmed that the method worked by creating additional friction and support in key areas of the foot, addressing the underlying biomechanical issues that cause problems with traditional high heel designs. Fashion schools began incorporating discussion of the technique into their courses on practical design and problem solving. Students were encouraged to study Catherine's approach as an example of how simple innovations could have significant practical impact. The method became a case study in creative thinking and the value of approaching old problems from new perspectives. Department stores and shoe retailers started noticing changes in customer behavior and product demand. requests for heel modifications and comfort accessories decreased in certain demographics, while sales of specific types of hosiery increased. Retail analysts began studying these trends to understand how consumer behavior was changing in response to new information about fashion solutions. The technique's growing popularity also attracted attention from hosiery manufacturers, who began developing specialized products designed to optimize the effectiveness of Catherine's basic approach. While the original method required only standard tights, companies saw opportunities to create enhanced versions that might work even better for specific applications. By the end of 2012, what had started as Catherine's personal solution to a private problem had become a widely discussed fashion innovation with global reach. The technique had evolved from a closely guarded secret to an accessible method that was helping thousands of women feel more confident and comfortable in formal footwear. Most importantly, it had demonstrated that some of the most valuable innovations come not from expensive research and development, but from creative thinking and practical problem solving by people facing real-world challenges. By 2013, Catherine's simple innovation had evolved into a worldwide phenomenon that was reshaping how women approach formal footwear and challenging the fashion industry to think differently about comfort and practicality. The technique had transcended its origins as a royal fashion secret to become a symbol of accessible innovation and female empowerment that resonated across cultures and economic boundaries. The impact was perhaps most visible in corporate environments, where professional women had long struggled with the expectation to wear high heels for extended periods while maintaining comfort and confidence throughout demanding workdays. Sarah Chun, a management consultant in Singapore, discovered the technique through a fashion blog and found that it completely transformed her experience of client meetings and conference presentations. Sarah's story was typical of thousands of women worldwide who found that Catherine's method solved problems they had accepted as inevitable parts of professional life. The technique allowed her to focus on her work performance rather than foot discomfort, contributing to increased confidence and professional success. She began sharing the method with colleagues and clients, creating a network of professional women who supported each other through practical fashion knowledge. In New York's financial district, the technique became so widely adopted that it earned the nickname the Wall Street Walk among young female professionals. Investment banker Rebecca Martinez credited the method with helping her maintain composure during marathon deal negotiations and client presentations. The psychological impact of feeling physically secure and comfortable had measurable effects on her professional performance and career advancement. The medical community began taking serious notice of the technique as more healthcare professionals observed its effects on their patients. Dr. Amanda Foster, a physical therapist specializing in workplace injuries, found that patients who adopted Catherine's method reported significant reductions in foot, ankle, and back pain associated with prolonged heel wearing. The technique appeared to address some of the fundamental biomechanical problems that made traditional high heels problematic for extended wear. Research conducted at the University of Southern California's Biomechanics Laboratory confirmed that the technique provided measurable improvements in foot stability and pressure distribution. The study, led by Dr. Michael Rodriguez, found that participants using Catherine's method demonstrated better balance and reduced stress on pressure points compared to control groups wearing heels without the modification. The fashion industry's response to the technique's popularity was complex and sometimes contradictory. While some designers initially resisted the idea that their carefully crafted shoes needed modification for optimal comfort, others began incorporating the principles behind Catherine's method into their design processes. Several luxury brands started developing shoes with built-in features that mimic the effects of the tights technique. Italian shoe designer Francesca Lombardi was among the first to embrace the innovation fully, creating a line of heels specifically designed to work optimally with hosiery modifications. Her Comfort Couture collection acknowledged that true luxury should include both beauty and wearability, representing a shift in industry thinking about the relationship between fashion and function. The technique's influence extended beyond Western fashion markets to cultures with different approaches to formal footwear. In Japan, where precise attention to detail and respect for tradition intersect with appreciation for practical innovation, Catherine's method was enthusiastically adopted and refined. Japanese fashion magazines published detailed guides to implementing the technique with traditional formal wear, creating culturally specific variations that maintain the method's effectiveness while respecting local fashion customs. Fashion weeks in major cities began featuring discussions about practical innovation alongside traditional presentations of new designs. The Milan Fashion Week of 2013 included a symposium on accessible luxury, where industry leaders discussed how techniques like Catherine's were changing consumer expectations and forcing the industry to reconsider its priorities. Social media continued to play a crucial role in the technique's evolution and spread. Instagram influencers with millions of followers began incorporating the method into their content, demonstrating how it could be used with various outfit styles and occasions. The hashtag #TighTac gained international recognition, with posts in dozens of languages showing women from around the world sharing their experiences with the technique. The democratizing power of the internet meant that the technique reached women in developing countries who had limited access to expensive fashion products but could benefit enormously from practical solutions to footwear challenges. Entrepreneur Maria Gonzalez in Mexico City started a small business teaching the technique to professional women, helping them succeed in corporate environments where polished appearance was crucial for career advancement. Educational institutions began incorporating the story of Catherine's innovation into business and design curricula as an example of how simple ideas could create significant value and social impact. Harvard Business School developed a case study examining how the technique spread globally and influenced consumer behavior across multiple industries. The technique also gained adoption in specialized professional environments where appearance and comfort were both critical. Flight attendants, hotel staff, retail workers, and healthcare professionals found that Catherine's method allowed them to meet professional appearance standards while maintaining comfort during long shifts. Major employers in these industries began including information about the technique in their employee training programs. Entertainment industry professionals quickly embraced the innovation as well. Actresses walking red carpets, performers in live shows, and television hosts discovered that the technique provided security and confidence during high-stakes public appearances. Award show stylists began incorporating the method into their standard preparation routines for celebrity clients. The technique's success sparked broader conversations about innovation in fashion and the value of practical thinking. TED Talks and academic conferences began featuring discussions about how Catherine's approach represented a new model for fashion innovation that prioritized user experience over traditional design hierarchies. Fashion journalism evolved to include more coverage of practical fashion solutions alongside traditional trend reporting. Major magazines launched regular features on fashion problem solving, with Catherine's technique serving as the gold standard for accessible innovation that addressed real user needs. By late 2013, surveys conducted by fashion industry research firms found that awareness of Catherine's method had reached over 60% of women in developed countries who regularly wore high heels. More significantly, adoption rates among those who learned about the technique exceeded 80%, indicating that the method delivered on its promises of improved comfort and security. The technique's influence on product development accelerated as manufacturers recognized the market demand for solutions that incorporated its principles. Hosiery companies developed specialized products optimized for heel security, while shoe manufacturers began designing heels that worked better with the technique. The innovation had created entirely new market segments and business opportunities. Podiatrists and orthopedic specialists began recommending the technique to patients as a safer alternative to traditional approaches to heel wearing. medical literature started including references to the method as an example of how simple interventions could prevent common foot and ankle problems associated with formal footwear. The story of Catherine's innovation became a powerful symbol of how practical thinking and creative problem-solving could create value that transcended social and economic boundaries. From royal engagements to corporate boardrooms to factory floors, the same simple technique was helping women feel more confident and comfortable while challenging industries to prioritize user needs over traditional assumptions about fashion and function. 5 years after Catherine's initial discovery, the impact of her simple innovation had grown far beyond what anyone could have predicted, fundamentally changing not just how women approached footwear challenges, but how the entire fashion industry thought about user-centered design and practical innovation. The technique had become so deeply integrated into global fashion culture that many young women learned about it as a standard part of their fashion education, unaware of its specific origins or the revolution it had quietly created. The most profound change was perhaps in the mindset shift the technique had catalyzed across the fashion industry. Major design houses that had traditionally prioritized aesthetic impact over practical considerations began investing significant resources in comfort research and user experience optimization. The success of Catherine's approach had demonstrated that consumers valued functionality alongside beauty, and that addressing real-world problems could create both brand loyalty and competitive advantage. Stella McCartney, known for her commitment to ethical fashion, launched an entire research division focused on what she called conscious comfort design. The initiative brought together biomechanics experts, material scientists, and fashion designers to develop innovative solutions to common clothing and accessory challenges. McCartney credited Catherine's technique with proving that simple, accessible innovations could be more valuable than complex, expensive alternatives. The academic study of fashion innovation was similarly transformed by the technique's success and global adoption. Universities around the world began offering courses specifically focused on practical fashion problem-solving, using Catherine's method as a foundational case study in how to identify user needs and develop effective solutions. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology launched a joint program between its engineering and design schools dedicated to fashion innovation, with Catherine's technique serving as the first example students studied. Dr. Lisa Park, who directed the MIT program, explained that Catherine's innovation represented a perfect example of what she called democratized design thinking. The technique showed how valuable innovations could emerge from anyone facing a practical problem, regardless of their technical training or access to specialized resources. This insight was reshaping how both academic institutions and corporations approached innovation and product development. The influence on medical practice continued to grow as healthcare professionals accumulated more experience with patients who used the technique. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the London podiatrist who had initially studied the method, published comprehensive research showing significant improvements in foot health among regular high-heel wearers who adopted Catherine's approach. Her work had been replicated by researchers in 12 countries, all confirming the technique's benefits for foot stability and injury prevention. The World Health Organization included Catherine's technique in its guidelines for workplace safety in industries requiring formal dress codes. The inclusion represented official recognition that the method provided measurable health benefits and could help prevent common workplace injuries related to unstable footwear. This endorsement led to adoption of the technique in workplace safety training programs across multiple industries and countries. Technology companies had begun developing digital applications and virtual reality training programs to help women learn and optimize the technique for their individual needs. The Perfect Heel app, developed by a team of engineers in Silicon Valley, used artificial intelligence to analyze foot shape, shoe design, and movement patterns to provide personalized recommendations for implementing Catherine's method most effectively. The app's success illustrated how the technique had inspired innovation across industries beyond fashion. Software developers, material scientists, and biomechanics researchers had all found opportunities to build upon Catherine's basic insight, creating new products and services that extended the method's impact and accessibility. International development organizations recognized the technique's potential impact in emerging economies, where professional appearance was often crucial for economic advancement, but expensive fashion solutions were inaccessible to most women. The United Nations Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative included training in Catherine's method as part of its professional development programs in developing countries. Amira Hassan, who participated in one of these programs in Cairo, credited the technique with helping her succeed in Egypt's competitive banking industry. The confidence and comfort she gained from using Catherine's method during long workdays and client meetings had contributed to her promotion to a management position, demonstrating the technique's potential for creating real economic impact in women's lives. The technique had also influenced broader conversations about innovation and problem-solving in contexts far beyond fashion. Business schools use Catherine's story to teach students about the value of simple solutions and the importance of understanding user needs. Management consultants reference the technique when helping companies develop innovation strategies, emphasizing how breakthrough ideas often came from addressing basic practical problems rather than pursuing complex technological advancement. Environmental advocates had embraced the technique as an example of sustainable innovation that extended product lifespans rather than creating additional consumption. By helping women get more comfortable wear from their existing shoes, Catherine's method supported principles of environmental responsibility and conscious consumption that were becoming increasingly important to younger consumers. The slow fashion movement, which emphasized quality, durability, and thoughtful consumption over rapid trend cycles, adopted Catherine's technique as a perfect example of how to maximize value from existing wardrobe pieces. Fashion activists argued that innovations like Catherine's represented a more sustainable and equitable approach to style than the traditional industry model of constantly promoting new product purchases. Fashion weeks around the world had evolved to include substantial programming focused on practical innovation and user-centered design. The London Fashion Week of 2016 featured an entire day dedicated to practical luxury, with panels, demonstrations, and exhibitions showing how designers were incorporating the principles demonstrated by Catherine's technique into their latest work. Young designers graduating from fashion schools increasingly included practical innovation components in their thesis projects, recognizing that addressing real user problems could differentiate their work in a competitive industry. The technique had helped establish practical problem solving as a legitimate and valuable focus for creative fashion work, rather than something that detracted from artistic vision. The story of Catherine's innovation had become a powerful symbol of how individual creativity and practical thinking could create positive change that extended far beyond its original scope. From improving women's daily comfort and confidence to inspiring new approaches to design and innovation across multiple industries, the simple technique had demonstrated that the most transformative ideas often emerge from the most everyday challenges. As women around the world continued to discover and benefit from Catherine's method, they were also inspired to apply similar creative thinking to other challenges in their lives. The technique had become more than just a fashion hack. It represented a mindset of practical innovation and self-empowerment that encouraged people to look for simple, accessible solutions to problems they had previously accepted as unchangeable. The lasting legacy of Catherine's discovery lay not just in its practical benefits, but in its demonstration that innovation belonged to everyone. By showing that a simple, creative approach to a common problem could create global impact, the technique had inspired countless people to trust their own problem-solving abilities and to believe that their ideas could make a meaningful difference in the world.